Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
So now, some, like Roger Goodell, commissioner of the NFL, says it's okay to take a knee and disrespect our flag? Not with me. I condemn the NFL and anyone that dishonors our flag and our patriots. Right now, let's go to Kate Smith and God Bless America, followed by a real-life patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance. Let's hear Kate. Come on, roll it, Kate. Stage right. Good morning. Call in. And a good morning to you and yours. Zeb at the Ranch, as I'm Zeb Bell, sitting in the studio and looking forward to a great day, brought to you by our Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you with the best of tires and a clean, safe environment. Stop in and see them today, along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And, of course, Greystone Crossing Independent Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. Right now, let's go to the phone line and have our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
My friend.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to ask you something real quick, Doug. Were you sitting or kneeling when you gave that pledge?
No, sir.
Absolutely.
I God and stand for the flag.
There you go, my friend. There you go. God bless you for your call. Thank you so much. Let's go to the weather forecast right now. K&R Rental. Roger will go and out. I'm telling you, get there early in the morning, and they throw the doors open at 7 a.m. at 256 South, 600 west of Heyburn on the Burley-Paul Highway. You know, Roger's got everything over there for you to get ready for the spring and summer, which it's already. In a couple days, it's going to be legally summer. And they've got all the power rakes, all the garden and lawn equipment, all the water lines, all the rototillers. Oh, yeah, you're going to work up all that ground, I'll tell you. And all of the equipment is on availability for both long and short-term rental. I choked to death there. And I urge you to give them a call, 678-3122. Really, really good people, K&R Rental. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
I think our gardens are going to enjoy Mother Nature this week because temperatures are going to be warming up. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting mostly sunny skies for today, a little bit of a breeze, but a high near 68. Tonight, mostly clear skies with a low of 44 tomorrow. Sunny skies, high of 78, mostly clear for tomorrow night with a low of 50 by Thursday. Looking at mostly sunny skies, high of 87. That's a look at your weather forecast for Zeb at the Ranch.
I love it, Gina. Thank you. 48 degrees currently outside the Zeb at the Ranch studio, and the weather brought to you by K&R Rental. 256 South, 600 west of Heyburn. Easy to find right there on the Burley-Paul Highway. Questions? Call them at 678-3122. K&R Rental. I want to also remind you about some dear friends of ours, and I'm glad he is healing up. I had a little conversation with Kevin the other day, over at Daryl's Cleaners at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. He is healing up, and he wants to tell everybody thank you. Thank you for all the cards and the thoughts and helping him out. They appreciate that. Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley, the best doggone clothes cleaner in the world. I'm telling you, they do a great job. Whether it's your clothes, your curtains, whatever it might be, and they'll even do your washing, too. Wash, dry, fold, and iron all your clothes. They're open 8:30 to 4:30, and you stop in and see them today. Daryl's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. Another great sponsor that I just absolutely pay tribute to because they've been so good to us and on the program ever since the beginning, and that's Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. When you think about it, they're soon to be celebrating over 7 decades. 7 decades of serving you. Wow. With all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs and knowledge. Knowledge by people that really know and can help you. Number to call, 678-0459. They're open 7:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. And with the warmer temperatures, don't forget they've got all your air conditioning filters over there at Ramsey Heating and Electric. You stop in and give them a call today. All right, time to give me a call, 436-2244-1866-927-4587. Like to hear from you. We are going to have the governor calling in this morning at 9:30, and what we're going to do, I'm going to ask him questions for about maybe the first 10 minutes or so of the interview, and then I'm going to open up the phone lines for you folks to ask him questions. But I'm going to urge you and remind you that be respectful in your questioning and keep it first class. Anybody that doesn't gets cut off. That's it, flat and simple. And we're going to have him call in at 9:30 this morning, so we're looking forward to it. All right, give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. The left, including... I saw this picture, and then I saw it on the news, and I was completely taken aback at this. And I want you to call me and let me know your thoughts. But the left, including Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and others, bowing, kneeling to a gathering with Black Lives Matters, and they said they were having a moment of silence for George Floyd, but this is absolutely disgusting to me. And wearing the Kente cloth at the police reform that they were kneeling for, I mean, please. Everybody was wearing the same. It's kind of like we got to get in lockstep. It's kind of like we all have to get in lockstep and bow and admit our sins and admit that we are white and we are privileged and how sorry we are. This is nauseating. It's nauseating. Bowing to a human movement of anarchy? Are you kidding me? One police officer, and I'm going to try to get this man on the air, a Georgia law enforcement officer refused to kneel as protesters demanded he kneel at a Black Lives Matter rally in Hartwell, Georgia this past Sunday. Georgia State Trooper O'Neill Sadler said that he told a female protester that he only kneels for one person, and that is God. Let that sink in a little bit. He only kneels for one being, and that is God. And I absolutely respect him for that. But the Black Lives Matter, along with Antifa, two very, very nefarious and dangerous organizations that many people are not understanding or willing to do their own homework and understand. including many right here in Magic Valley. That was proven because we saw in the Sunday edition of the Times News marchers of young people, with Black Lives Matter sign and everything. It's very dangerous. Let me tell you something, folks. If you don't agree with anything I say, at least do your homework. Black Lives Matters was founded by evil people with Marxist ideas that are bent on destroying America and promoting the LGBT issues along with destroying the capitalistic system in this country. Look it up. Find out yourself. Caller, I'll take your call momentarily. Stand by. Want to remind everybody, too, about Dino Septic Service. Yes, septic tank pumping, septic tank and drain fields installed, water and sewer lines installed, sewer and sink drain lines cleaned out, liquid waste removal, all of this with jobs we don't want to do. No. But they do, and they do a wonderful job. Fast, fair, friendly service. Dino Septic Service, 436-6526 or 678-1638. Don't forget, with the big truck that says Smells Cargo on the way to serve you, Dino Septic Service. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, it is just what you're saying. It's a movement to destroy this country. And if Black Lives Matter, why don't they protest to that retired police officer that got killed by a rioter?
Now, I'm going to hold on just a second, Doug. I'm going to ask if Sean could turn the volume up in my headset, the feed line, just a touch. You know, I find it despicable and absolutely not understandable how this former police captain at 70-plus years of age, I think he was 77, was trying to protect a business for his friend, and his life was taken by the rioters, the looters, and the extremely low-class vermin that tore the city apart, and nobody honors him. I haven't heard of any of the Democrats bowing with their kente cloth on their neck for this officer, and I find that totally disgusting like you, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Exactly. There are black people getting killed every day in Chicago and these big cities. Sure, they're getting killed by other blacks, but don't their lives matter? There's children get shot in playgrounds playing because of a drive-by shooting.
A little girl, 7 years of age, was walking down the street with her older sister at 9.5 to 10 years of age. They had just gone to the store. Both of them were shot. Why?
Yes. See, if they weren't so daggum hypocritical, maybe somebody would take them seriously. But they are just a hypocrite. That's all they are. And there's a lot of Republicans that are hypocrites, too. I could name some names, but, I mean, if they stand and they say this isn't right, but then they turn their back on the same person getting, same nationality getting killed, and don't even mention them.
Let me just throw something at you here with the Black Lives Matter and Antifa. We have some fools, and I'm going to underline that word, not back up. We have some fools in the media, one of them being Randy Staples, former Idaho newspaper reporter. And he writes an op-ed piece for the Times News, and he had one the other day in Sunday's paper called, "The Antifa is coming, the Antifa is coming." And basically the gist of the article was that we should be more concerned about right-wing nationalists than we should be for Antifa. Where was this fool, Randy Staples, when Antifa beat almost to death that reporter in Portland? I'm asking you, Doug. Give me an answer.
Silence. They're hypocritical. That's what I'm saying. I'm just a loss for words on how upset it makes me when they try to push something down our throat, but then they don't even acknowledge someone else being killed or some property being destroyed. how property can be replaced, but lives can't.
Yeah, that was a comment that was made this past week, and it was one of the most idiotic comments by a Democratic supporter and on CNN, and I thought I would fall out of my chair when she said, well, it's not violence when it's property destruction. That can be replaced. And I thought, you are one of the idiots that's trying to run the world.
Exactly. And there's a lot of politicians out there who have never owned a business or even worked in a job where, they got paid for their work. They're just politicians. They get elected to office, and immediately they think they are smarter than the people that elected them.
Well, you look at Randy Staples and others of his ilk that are left bent on, I think, the destruction of our capitalist system and anarchy against our Constitution, etc. I just despise Randy and his writing because it's so left-wing, and saying that individual and groups of white nationalists have been seen and sometimes arrested at violent incidents around the country, and he goes along and at the end of the story he says, basically, like an Idaho group, leftist Antifa or right-wing nationalists, which is worse, basically, is what he's saying. Doug, I'm going to tell you right now that I will not bow to BLM Matters, or I will not bow to Antifa. But this is what they're asking for. If you don't go along with their opinion, like that girl that walked outside of that building the other day and it was caught on tape, she was wearing a jogging suit, and one of the Antifa people went up to her, and it's on tape, and said, you better bow down right now, get on your knees and apologize for being white and also for white privilege. And she was so scared she did it.
Wow. That just tells you what they want. They want people to be afraid of them, and they won't ever ask me to do that.
Whatever happened, Doug, to your opinion? You and I don't agree on all subjects, which is a good thing, but we can converse and maybe find some common ground. But the main thing is, we're still friends, and we still visit socially, etc., even if we don't agree on all subjects. But people now, with Antifa and Black Lives Matter, oh, don't you cross the road, because we'll get you.
Yeah. It's, don't confuse me with the facts. My mind's already made up, and you can't change it.
Absolutely.
And then I seen something this last couple days, and my wife showed it to me, and it said, unborn lives matter.
Amen. Amen.
I'm thinking, I need to get that for a bumper sticker. Unborn lives matter.
You know something, and there's a little feedback there, Sean. I know it's a gray area, and it's hard to adjust. He's doing a great job over there at the station, and I appreciate him. But I will tell you this. When it comes to abortion, and when it comes to killing babies, and when it comes to a society that doesn't care anymore about the unborn and doesn't care anymore about the elderly, we are a society where old Nero is playing his fiddle and Rome is burning.
Exactly it. You take a politician, if they will not stand and protect an unborn innocent baby who hasn't even breathed the breath of air, how could he or she have committed a crime that gets a death sentence?
Yeah.
I mean, what has that child done?
Have we?
In the Bible it says, I've seen you before you were born.
Yeah. Have we lost our humanity? And I know, I'm going to point my finger, and I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, Doug, but I'm pointing my finger at the churches again. I'm pointing my finger at the pulpit again. I'm pointing my finger at pastors and church leaders again. Have we lost our humanity? Have we lost you in the church leadership to speak up about social issues that are destroying Christianity in America? I still maintain they could do so much more, and they barely even whisper.
I know it. They do. They've got their biblical calendar, I guess you could call it, and every Sunday it's predictable of what they're going to talk about because that's their calendar. This is what They need to...
It's a safety zone for them, Doug. It's a safety zone that keeps them out of the social eye because they're afraid to tread water or get in deep water and really try to be something as a social issue backer for Christianity.
They need to get more like the 12 disciples were.
Absolutely.
Willing to put their life on the line for Jesus.
I've taken so much heat, and I will not name names. I'm not going to go that way. From churches and church leadership that have condemned me for criticizing pastors and church leaders. I'm not going to quit. They're not doing their job. And I'll tell you what. When I can talk to one of the nation's largest and biggest known theologians, Dr. Alvin Schmidt, that has been on my program many times, and he's been in poor health recently, and he agrees with me that pastors and church leaders aren't even coming close to doing their job, what does that tell you?
That they're scared or they, aren't following what they were called to do.
I think they're more afraid of the lack of what's in the collection plate than they are of really doing the honor and service to their faith.
You probably got a point there.
I know I do.
You do.
Doug, I got to run, and I appreciate your calls, as always. You're a dear friend of this program and very involved in the promotion of helping the seniors. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and there's one quote I'd like to leave with today. One is, let's take care of our senior centers, but the other one is, things are not getting worse. They're getting uncovered. We must hold each other tight and continue to pull back the veil.
Send that to me, please.
All right.
Thank you, my dear friend. Thank you very much. Calls welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I don't care if people agree with me or not. When we're honest on these talk show programs, I'm going to tell you how I feel. And I just feel like we're not doing enough to stand up and protect a value system of right and wrong. And it starts with the families and the churches, and they're not doing their job. That's it, plain and simple. Don't forget Denny's Restaurant at 611 North Overland in Burley. Boy, they do their job. These are good people, and they're coming out of a disastrous couple of months, and they're trying to think about all the things they can do to have you come down and enjoy a great meal. Well, June 18th through the 21st, they're going to have a whole bunch of tables set up outside, and they're going to have a great big duck pond for prize drawing. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hot fun in the summertime at Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner. We're going to have our lunch bunch over there on the 18th. Lunch bunchers, be aware of that at 11:30. I hope the weather's about 85 degrees. I hope everything is great and sunshine, and I hope we have a good time outside at Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner, 611 North Overland in Burley. All right, give me a call. I probably scared away a lot of phone calls right now because I don't want you to criticize our church. Well, they need to be criticized. And so do some of the church leaders and pastors. Because I don't think, according to many people that have called me and emailed me, they're doing the job of protecting Christianity. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Please give me a call. The other thing I opened up with this morning is I'm a football fanatic. I mean, I eat, sleep, and breathe football, and now I'm absolutely torn as to whether I'm even going to turn on an NFL game this fall. Because of Roger Goodell, milquetoast, weak-kneed, and I have no respect for him or the NFL saying, maybe we made a mistake, and, we'll just let our players, I guess, disrespect the flag and kneel. What kind of leadership is that? Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb. After the World Health Organization come out, and I'm sure the Chinese in cahoots with them realized a long time ago that there was not this virulency. In other words, if you did not have any symptoms, the chances of you passing on the virus to somebody else was very nil. I mean, it makes only common sense, but if you got somebody coughing and sneezing, that's a whole different deal. But, here we still, larger congregations are still not able to meet, and they, of course, they come back and say, well, you can meet online. Well, that's not church, in my opinion.
No.
You agree with me?
Now, you know what I do? Wait a minute. You asked me a question. Adrian, wait a minute. You asked me kind of a question, and I'm going to absolutely stand shoulder to shoulder with you that online services absolutely, to me, are ridiculous and don't get the point across the way actual congregations in church settings do. And I think it was a slap in the face to say that, well, online. A lot of people, a lot of senior citizens, et cetera, and even people that aren't seniors, they don't have computers or they don't know how to do that kind of thing. That eliminates them from any kind of a church service whatsoever, and I find that ludicrous.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And but it's the fact is now, it only makes common sense. We have over 50% of the people, I've heard as high as 75%, that get the virus never even have any symptoms. They don't even have a temperature, don't know they have it. Then all of a sudden somebody comes and tests you, and then the ironic thing about it, is that a lot of these tests are not very accurate. I understand. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of debate about how accurate these tests are to find out if you have the virus. But I don't know. Is the beef plant in Burley still? Is it opening? Is it working? I know Jerome, the potato plant over there in Jerome, they found a lot of cases. And I doubt any of them went to the hospital, and probably most of them didn't even have symptoms, didn't even know they had the virus. So they send them home without a paycheck. And this thing is Dr. Ron Paul, who's a medical doctor. April the 4th, I just ran across that report last night in my archives on my computer, and he said that this thing was a hoax in the sense of the severity of it. Not that people aren't going to be dying from it, and mostly people in care centers and so forth are the ones that it's over about 50%, I guess. But if you're sick, you stay home. If you're coughing, wheezing, whether you have a cold or a flu or whatever you got, stay home. Don't infect everybody else, but let the rest of us live.
Well, okay, Adrian.
Shut us down and.
Adrian, I've gone on now for about 5 minutes, and I know you'll understand, and I've got other calls to take and everything, but I want to agree with you. I think that the pandemic, quote unquote, was in many ways mismanaged because of either a lack of knowledge about it or a control factor, as we saw with Whitmer back in Michigan and Cuomo back in New York State, etc. But right now, I'm not looking over my shoulder. I'm looking forward. We have got to open things up. We've got to restore our economy. We've got to restore and re-implement the vibrancy of business. We've got to get our kids back into school. We've got to restore a good education system. We've got to go back to being Americans, and no more of this lefty stay-at-home behind closed doors attitude. They're still running an ad on TV. Whether you're sick or not, stay home. And that is as bogus, and that's the word I have to use on the radio, as anything I've ever heard.
Yeah, I totally agree. The fact they found in New York, the people who have just stayed locked down, I've got some friends that are absolutely paranoid that they're going to get this virus. The death rate's less than 0.1% of 1%. And the fact is, the bottom line, Zeb, they basically ruined, destroyed the U.S. economy and the world economy, and they want to get rid of Trump in the meantime.
That's absolutely the truth.
Main factors keeping this thing going.
I agree.
The Democrats, the socialists, globalists want a world government, and our governor has just fallen prey to that. And I'm sorry, but he's been a dictator, authoritarian, and it needs to stop. Call his office, 334-2100 again, 334-2100. Open up the state, especially in light of this new information.
All right, I got to run. I've got to run, Adrian. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. I agree with you. Thank you very much. Thank you. But we can look at it this other way, too. we were blessed that our governor wasn't in the folds of saying like Whitmer and Cuomo and the governor of Illinois and Gruesome Newsom down in California. I mean, my goodness sakes, you talk about left-wing nuts. Don't forget, Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair is for sale. There you go. Now you know. The whole business, the whole shooting match. I mean, it's a turnkey business operation. Beautiful new shop. All the tools, all the equipment, and all of Doug's knowledge. He will train the buyer of the business, rebuilding starters and alternators, and I mean to tell you, it's a good business. Great business opportunity for you. All you need to do is just call him at 878-4991. That number again, 878-4991. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair, 635 21st Street in Heyburn. It is for sale, and it may be for you. Okay. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Give me a call, please. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are. Whether you agree with me or not, I'd like to hear from you, so please give me a call. And once again, into the Zebeth Ranch Hall of Fame, I put the name of the Georgia State Trooper, O'Neill Sadler. Absolutely, he's up on the wall right now, and I compliment him for saying, I only kneel for one person, and that's God. Nobody should kneel ever for another human being. Nobody should bow ever to another human being. That ain't going to happen. And when you have these radical, power-lusting groups like Antifa and Black Lives Matter, and basically shaming and coercing and forcing people to take a knee and say, I'm sorry, I'm white. I'm sorry that I have white privilege. This is so completely bogus and wrong. I guess the question to you, the audience, is, honestly, would you bow or kneel and apologize for who and what you are? This is so disgusting to me. And that's not theatrical. It's just so disgusting to me. And then they say we have to apologize for our white privilege. And there was a genuine stupid woman that was interviewed on CNN and asked that if they defund the police and they need a policeman at 3 o'clock in the morning that's breaking into a house, and she said, what would you do? And she said, well, I guess that's part of your white privilege because you can call the police. What? White privilege? I mean, these people on the left are kooks. They're crazy. They're crackpots. And they're evil. They're evil. And some of our unknowledgeable young people, and they are, and so are their parents, for letting them participate in marches for Black Lives Matter and Antifa, evil. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Don't weaken on me. Give me a call, please. This deal with the NFL and Roger Goodell and saying now, oops, oh, well, we're sorry. We tried to make everybody stand up and respect our flag. Adrian Arp was on the phone here a little bit ago, and he wrote a letter to the editor, and the first paragraph of his letter absolutely was spot on. And I'm going to read that right now. I didn't have it in front of me when Adrian was on the phone. It is totally disrespectful to dishonor the flag during the playing of the national anthem. This is because the national anthem was written, and this is true, when Patriot soldiers kept the flag hoisted during the British warship assault on the flag at Fort McHenry during the War of 1812. People were giving their lives to make sure that that flag stood tall and did not fall. And now Now, because of pressure from insidious evil groups like Black Lives Matter and Antifa, oh, well, we're sorry, we're patriots, we're sorry we say the Pledge of Allegiance, oh, well, we're sorry we stand during the national anthem with respect to our flag and our forefathers and all of our family members that have given their lives for this country, we're sorry. What a bunch of meek sheep we're turning into. Disgusting. And I noticed the last couple of minutes, no calls. Are you agreeing with the BLM, Black Lives Matter? Are you agreeing with Antifa, or are you agreeing that we've got to get out and turn this country around the way it should be? Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, I just want to say to these people, not sorry.
Good, Rod. You know, if anybody that calls in, I absolutely realize and appreciate where you stand, and I don't think you're going to be coerced into anything, and I appreciate that.
Absolutely not. I swear, I will not bow or kneel to anyone except Almighty God.
There you go.
And these people, I will stand up to them, and I don't care if I have to fight. I will not back down from being proud of who I am and what I am.
Oh, gee, Rod, do you mean to tell me that if they bring a kente cloth to hang around your neck that you're not going to take a knee and you're not going to go, I'm sorry, I'm white. I'm sorry, I'm white privilege?
I will be busting heads.
I think it's maybe past time for some of that. God bless you, Rodney. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yep, catch you later.
You bet, buddy. Thank you. You know, everybody says, well, turn the other cheek. Turn the other cheek. How many cheeks do you have? How many cheeks do you have before you realize that you are now under their control? I just absolutely am very worried about what's taking place in our communities. I'm very worried about the mindset of, hey, you're white, you need to apologize. Hey, you're white, you've got special privilege. For those of you that went through school, and maybe your parents didn't have a yacht, a summer retreat somewhere, and ski passes to go to Sun Valley every weekend, and you had to work your tail off to try to get through college. And if you didn't go to college, you worked your tail off to learn a trade or whatever to be successful. God bless all of you. But where was the white privilege? Where is the white privilege for working your tail off and trying to be successful and trying to amount to somebody, and then others say, oh, well, you've got a boat, you've got weekends in Sun Valley, and you're privileged. You earned it. You earned it. Life is not to be living under a rock going, oh, woe is me. Life is to go out and do the best you can for you and your family and enjoy the fruits of your labor. And it's also to help others. Some of the greatest charity givers are people that have worked hard all their life and turn around, look over their shoulder, and help others. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
It's me again, Margaret.
Yeah, do you agree or disagree with me?
I agree. If there's white privilege, then why did Elizabeth Warren have to claim to be Native American to land a job at a university?
And get money.
Yes.
No, I'm totally agreeing with you. I'm sitting here. The analogy about Elizabeth Warren is just one of many, many politicians that are liars.
Exactly. So when they can answer that question, why she did that to land a job, then I'll start listening to them about white privilege. But there's no white privilege. There is no privilege, period.
Well, okay, let's stop for a minute. I got a weather forecast, but I'm going to take just a moment here quickly, and then I've got a call waiting, Doug.
Yeah.
But you've worked hard all your life, right?
Yes.
been a truck driver and now you own this business and you're going to sell it and spend some time with your wife and enjoy the rest of your life. I absolutely respect that. Where is the white privilege in working your tail off and trying to make ends meet and finally getting a few coins to rub together and make a dime and trying to enjoy a little bit of time with your spouse?
Well, they claim it's white privilege, but they're just jealous and too lazy to do what it takes to be successful.
That's right. In most cases, you're right.
Most cases, I'm painting with a broad brush, so if I run over somebody, but if they're out there not claiming white privilege and they're of color, then they're the ones that are working to be successful.
Why are white people today, look, quickly, I got to have you answer this and then I got to do the weather. Why are white people, Caucasians today, and it seems to be spreading all over this country, why are we groveling? Why are we groveling to the Black Lives Matter and apologizing for who we are?
Well, there are some are, but this one isn't, and I'm sure you're not going to.
Oh, you got that right, buddy.
But it's our politicians trying to get control.
That's it. That's it. Thank you. I got to run. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care of our seniors.
All right. Caller number 2, I'm going to ask you a big favor. Can you just hang on the line a minute? I've got to get the weather in quick, and I promise I'll come right back to you in about 60 seconds. Our weather being brought to you by our dear friends at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, right behind the Minidoka Hospital, across from the emergency room, with absolutely the best practice and technology for your hearing health. Absolutely expert diagnostic testing, combined with the best technology to find out the problem and help your problem. Don't go around going, what, can't hear you. They can help, they will help. Make an appointment at 312-0957, Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
I think our gardens are going to enjoy Mother Nature this week because temperatures are going to be warming up. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting mostly sunny skies for today, a little bit of a breeze, but a high near 68. Tonight, mostly clear skies with a low of 44 tomorrow. Sunny skies, high of 78, mostly clear for tomorrow night with a low of 50 by Thursday. Looking at mostly sunny skies, high of 87. That's a look at your weather forecast for 7 Duran.
52 degrees outside right now. Thank you, Gina. And the weather brought to you by our friends. Boy, they do a wonderful, wonderful job in serving you. And that's Dr. Christine Pickup and the staff at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. Make an appointment today, 312-0957, Mount Harrison Audiology. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, Zeb. I am so tired of this going on and on. Have people forgot that this man was arrested? He has a record. He had other prior things charged against him. They're making him a saint. This isn't the first time this has happened where a criminal has been captured. It was a horrific thing that happened to him. But again, like you mentioned earlier, what about the other people that have been killed because of this and trying to do their job and protect us? And I'm so sick of them being made saints and honoring. There's more going on about them than there is anything else that matters in this world today.
Well, okay, last week we highlighted what George Floyd really was, and I'm not going to go through the whole spiel, but he was sent up to prison for armed robbery, and he was also up on some bad money charges, etc. I mean, like you said, he's not going to be St. Floyd by any choice or reason.
But they're making them that, and I understand also that these two men had a prior history that where he was a bouncer, that this other officer had been in, and they had a confrontation. But at any rate, again, like I say, it's a horrific thing, and there are good and bad in every walk of life. And I'm sorry that it happened, but it's time for people to realize that this man was not a saint.
Amen.
Quickly, is Wheels okay?
Yes, he is. He has taken a leave of absence, and we absolutely thank him for his service to the program. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I know I make a lot of people mad that are just kind of the marshmallows of our society. Let's not make any waves. Let's not squeeze anything. Let's all try to sing Kumbaya. Sit by the fireplace and just get along. Life's not like that right now today. There are factions like Black Lives Matter and like Antifa that want nothing more than disruption and total chaos to further their cause. Let's tell it like it is. And to capitulate, to agree, and to grovel with these people is disgusting. Disgusting. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Yesterday, Deanne and I were watching the news prior to supper, and we both just kind of stared at each other when it came on that in certain of the battleground states for the re-election of Donald Trump, he is way behind, according to the polls and the experts. Like in Michigan, 11 points behind. Some had him at 12 to 13 points behind Joe Biden. Here is a man that, whether you like him or not, and through all the adversity the Democrats and the left threw at him, put forth the best economy this country has seen for a long, long time. And when they couldn't beat him with Russian collusion, and they couldn't beat him with the Ukrainian situation, and they couldn't beat him with impeachment, and they couldn't beat him with the coronavirus, and now they throw this mess up with Antifa and Black Lives Matter and all the burning and looting, and still, right now this morning, the latest jobs report shows, and it defied all expectations, that it added more than 2.5 million jobs in May, and it was expected to go in the bucket and lose 7.5 million, but that didn't work out the way the Democrats wanted. And the unemployment rate fell to 13.3%. And it was expected to rise to nearly 20%. All of these absolutely doom and gloom projections and wannabes by the Democrats fell way short. And to think for a moment that we as a population would put in a deadbeat scoundrel and a man that absolutely can't remember what day it is or what hour it is, Joe Biden in as president, when he wants to destroy everything about this economy? What in the world is the matter with us? Donald Trump should be ahead in every poll. But, of course, we all know the fictitiousness of the polls and how they're conjured up. It just disgusts me. Don't forget our friends at Berry Equipment and Rental. And we had Corey on the program last week. Does a great job at the Burley location. Don't choke to death, Zeb. 159 West Highway 30 in Burley, and then 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin, and the Nampa location. I mean, they've got all the Bobcats. Here a Bobcat, there a Bobcat, everywhere Bobcats. All the shapes and sizes, and they've got all the trenchers and the scissor lifts, and they've got, of course, the Doosan wheel loaders and excavators. Excellent financing programs, and, of course, don't forget, great rental programs. So all you need to do is to take care of the jobs of lifting, digging, pushing, and carrying. Get a hold of Berry Equipment and Rental. Burley, Twin Falls, and Nampa. They are waiting to serve you. Wow. Yeah, we got a bunch of problems out there, folks. A bunch of and this disbanding the police, defunding the police. You got to admit that if you have a neighbor or a friend that says anything as idiotic as that, I just ask you to silently, without any comment, get up and walk away from that friend or neighbor because they are absolutely stupid. We going to call Ghostbusters? I said that yesterday. And home invasions, property invasions, theft, bank robbery, murder, everything that can be committed against mankind in a chaotic society would reign supreme if we defunded the police. But the movement, this defund the police starting in Minneapolis and other city councils picking up on it, it makes you wonder how they ever got out of crackers and milk in kindergarten. They're not very smart. They're not very smart. We're going to take a break, and coming up next hour, we've got my dear, dear friend Dan Kish with the American Energy Alliance, and then, as I said, at 9:30, we have Governor Brad Little that is supposed to be calling in, and we have quite a few different topics that we want to get into and cover this morning, if time allows. And then, of course, Dr. History, followed by a gentleman that really knows what's going on with the coronavirus, and that's Dr. Dean Hart, and he's going to be on the show at 10:30. So right now we're going to get ready to go to CBS News. Oh, boy, that'll be fun. And be back in about 7 minutes with more Zeb at the Ranch. Thank you for all your phone calls. Appreciate it. And we'll be back in 7 minutes. Oh, my. Here we go. Hour number 2 on a Tuesday. Tuesday already. June 9th. My goodness sakes. Brought to you by your major sponsor, Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with a very safe, clean environment and, of course, the best in tires. Along with our friends at Greystone Crossing, Independent Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn, and Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Right now, let's have this good word for Western Waste.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're all at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this free land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
Oh, my. I tell you about the route service every day, and I'll tell you about the dumpsters every day, and all the services they have for you to get rid of your trash. I mean, what you need to do is call them and visit with them at 734-6969. Boy, they are very supportive and helpful to all the communities around southern Idaho, and I urge you to give them a call and let them serve you. Western Waste Services, it's true, always at your disposal. The number to call, 734-6969. Want to also remind you about some really, really good friends of ours, and that, of course, is Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert. My goodness sakes, Joel Heward, his family, and his staff serving you and your family with very flexible hours. They are there to serve you. Absolutely providing the families with the best possible support and comfort when there's the passing of a loved one. And always remember upholding the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. I urge you to remember the number and call Hanson Mortuary 436-5636. That number again, 436-5636. And Joel Heward also serving you and your family at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. Wow, another group that I want to tell you about, and that's Denny's Restaurant. Did you hear they're back open and serving you? And the hours, of course, are 7 to 9 Sunday through Thursday, 7 to 10 on Fridays and Saturdays. Social distancing inside, but they're going to have an outside party. It's going to be 18th through the 21st of June. Outside, we're going to have a lot of fun. Our lunch bunch will be over there on the 18th, and delicious food, great people, nice time at Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley, America's Diner. I'm telling you, I'm looking forward to it. You should be too. Denny's Restaurant. Like I said, the best of food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner for you and your family. Right now, let's go to the phone line, and this man absolutely knows everything about energy or the lack thereof. And I say a good morning to my friend Dan Kish. How are you?
Good morning, Zeb. I'm well and Pray you are as well.
I got to ask you a question. I don't know what the weather has been back there on the coast. I know that it has been a little gnarly with the hurricanes and storms and everything else. But out here, it was darn near snowing at the ranch less than 3 days ago. And severe cold and high winds of about 40 miles per hour. Now it's starting to come out of this area a little bit, warming up a little bit today and getting better towards the weekend. But, oh, gee, somebody must have told us that it should be global warming and we're sweating to death. It's not like that.
Well, I tell you, Zeb, you don't have to worry. The Chinese are so busy building coal plants, it'll heat up the atmosphere and everybody can get into summer.
You know, why is it that we, with all of our technocracy and technology, the ability to clean things up, and we have when it comes to energy, and we have all the ability to make sure that any energy is going to be acceptable and reliable and safe for the consuming American public, but we give it away, sell it away to others, and we sit there in the dark, literally?
Well, Zeb, I think it has a lot to do with control, don't you?
Oh, I do.
I mean, if they can make us dance the way they want us to dance, that gives them a big sense of control over other people. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people attracted to politics who like that. I mean, we've seen this through the coronavirus thing where, you know, and you also see how they loosen their standards as soon as something they like happens. We've seen huge crowds gathering, practicing no social distancing, and yet the governor of Michigan, for example, wouldn't let a 77-year-old barber who wanted to cut some hair cut hair.
Yeah.
And luckily the Supreme Court in Michigan overruled it. But, I mean, this is at the base of all of this stuff. I've always said, Zeb, and I don't know if I've mentioned it to you before, that all of these arguments about energy are really not about energy. They're about power.
Yeah.
It's about who gets to boss somebody else around, tell them, because if you control somebody's energy supply, you control their life. So I guess it shouldn't be surprising that many of the groups that are far left here and abroad are pushing for ways to control our use of energy, and they'll use, they use the environment, they use the climate, they use whatever it takes to try to scare people. And they've scared a lot of, any kid going to school gets a head full of this stuff now because the state controls the schools, and that's what you get.
Yeah.
So, this has never been about energy. We got plenty of energy. Americans know how to produce energy. We're the best in the world at doing it. We can do it cleanly, safely, and it shouldn't be a problem. But they're always sticking their fingers in there because, boy, if we could just get a control of their, if I just had the circuit box for Zeb Bell, I could turn it on and off depending on whether I like what he says or not.
Doesn't it amaze you, and you're a very sharp guy, doesn't it amaze you about the lack of, I hate to say intelligence by the American public because I know my audience is extremely smart, but when you look at the overall picture, the public that would accept the words of a 13, 14-year-old girl, Greta Thunberg, and then also accept the words and advice on energy from a bartender that doesn't know Khmer from Sikkim, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Holy smokes, what's happened to our mentality in this country?
Well, it's all become popularized by the culture and the media that rides that culture. I mean, that's what it is, Zeb. I mean, they make heroes out of little girls who skip school.
Yeah.
Who are afraid of something that they know little about, but are told by adults are something they should be worried about because they're all going to die if they don't do it. I mean, I'm sure she believes in her heart.
I am positive that Greta Thunberg believes in her heart that everything she says is straight up. Somebody's feeding that to her.
Yeah.
And when you get to the end and find out who's feeding it and funding the trips and everything, the one thing she won't do or hasn't done is travel over to China. I mean, if right now China is constructing just a story just today in a New York Times affiliated publication that the Chinese are trying to get out of the coronavirus by their economic downturn by building coal plants. And they're building, right now, they're building as many coal plants. They have as many coal plants, as much coal production under construction as the entire United States fleet, which has been going down as governments have been pushing them to shut down coal plants here. And they already consume over half the world's coal.
Mm.
So you think about that. I mean, why is she marching in the United States, which has led the world in reductions of carbon dioxide emissions? Nobody's done more in terms of carbon dioxide emissions, largely because we've been using natural gas instead of coal. And they're moving, and all the protests are here, and all the politicians are here screaming about us, when if we disappeared tomorrow, it would make a difference because China is going to, over 50% of the world's coal is burned in China. So you don't start, you know how this works. You don't start at the bottom with the people doing the best job. You start with where the problem is.
Yeah.
But no trips to China, no media appearances in China, no press conferences in China. I don't think they'd like that very much.
Dan, why is it, and with all the elbows that you push up against back in your part of the country with your job back in the D.C. swamp, honestly, why is there, in your opinion, such a naivete of these people on the left that are going, Russia, 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 when in essence the real fear for a complete global dominance is China? Why can't they open their eyes and see what's standing right in front of them?
Well, because it's part of the narrative. I mean, it's they know the problem isn't Russia. I mean, Russia's economy is the size of Italy's. I don't even think it's as big as Italy's. The idea that somehow now Russia has an immense landmass, just enormous. I've traveled it, and believe me, it's one time it was 11 time zones. That's a big country. But so they've obviously got lots of energy and minerals and agricultural land and timber and all the stuff that makes a nation powerful, but their system doesn't allow their people to make themselves rich. China, with a much smaller but still a large country, produces an enormous amount because they concentrate on production and trying to do things and building things that make sense, like coal plants, as opposed to wasting their time on solar panels. All these solar panels that are being put up in the United States by people making themselves feel good are made in China with coal that we can't use. And the reason they use coal is because it's the cheapest form of electricity. So there you go.
Yeah.
Oh, and they also use a huge amount of hydro, by the way, Zeb. China leads the world in hydroelectric. They recognize that hydro is also cheap. In the United States, the Greens want to tear down the hydro and import solar panels made with Chinese coal.
Oh, my. Dan, I've asked you about this before, but I had a lot of listeners that sent me emails, etc., after our last conversation. When you look at the Joe Biden platform, if you will, or the Democratic mantra of how they feel about trying to escalate and push forward the Green New Deal, if Joe Biden becomes president, What happens, in your opinion? I mean, how long would it take for them, the Democrats, and Biden to go from point A to point Z and totally disenfranchising and stopping our energy program to where we're basically at a standstill?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a great question, Zeb. Your listeners are astute. The two people who head up his Energy and Climate Task Force are John Kerry, the man who was responsible for us signing the Paris Accord that would have forced the United States to reduce carbon dioxide emissions, even though we're leading the world in it, and allowed China to continue to grow their emissions until 2030, and then maybe do something about it if they felt like it. And the other one is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who, of course, pushes the Green New Deal, which says we should spend $100 trillion converting our economy, banning airplanes, basically banning personal vehicles of any kind in order to meet the targets. It would just put the government in charge. It would make it a national emergency. So these orders that come around about masks and things like that, they just say, well, there's a national emergency. You can't drive your car today, Zeb. That's essentially where that's headed. So those policies are absolutely poisonous. And, I mean, they would weaken the United States. They would make us a second-class nation. They would catapult China into the number one status in the world economically, and then, of course, militarily and everything else. And then you do the math. How's that going to work out? Because once that happens, it's not hard to figure out that they're not going to let us claw back into the number one spot.
Let me ask you this, though. Of all the meetings that you have to attend with various factions of energy and, quite frankly, various thoughts on energy, don't these people realize with any sort of common sense at all that the transportation industry with the goods and services that have to go to point A to point B, point C, etc., and agriculture and all the other dependencies on energy would absolutely come to a screeching halt, and the country would fall into an abyss? Don't they realize this?
Zeb, I don't think they necessarily do. I mean, not the people who are making money off this. Here's the deal. If somebody's going to pay you to lobby Congress to push forward policies, you don't really question the policies. You take the paycheck and you go out and do the best job you can. It's not. I know it sounds terrible and cynical and everything else, but they don't consider it their job. If Tom Steyer hires them to go out and shut down all the affordable energy in the United States and push for this sort of stuff that he now makes his money on, so that's how they kind of see it. I mean, they don't say that because it sounds callous, but that's how they act. And actions speak much louder than words. That's what my mother always told me. And so at the end of the day, that's not their problem. They'll let somebody else worry about that. In the meantime, there's money to be made. There's money to be made by doing things that help China indirectly through helping their clients. And that's how they see it.
I'm sitting here just absolutely shaking my head because I just don't understand how, when yesterday, and I commented on this in the first hour, in states that are very powerful states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and others, they're showing that Biden is ahead by as much as 12 to 13 percentage points in the polls. And I'm wondering, what do these people do for a living? How do they get to their job? How do they go to the grocery store? How do they have their kids go to Little League or soccer? I mean, all of this is hinging upon his election. I don't want him in there. You'd think they'd be smarter than this.
Well, I mean, right now they're not able to go to work because those states have governors who impose these these blocks on them returning to work. So they're just basically getting a check from the government, which was part of the whole master plan. That's why people are being paid more on unemployment than they were making working. So the idea is to lull people into some idea, and they sit home and watch mainstream media on their TVs because they can't go anywhere. They can't go get their hair cut. They can't go fishing. They can't go gather. They can go out and protest. That's different. That somehow the medical science doesn't apply if you go out and protest or loot a store, or burn something down, or do whatever it is you may want to do. In Washington, they were, somehow scrawling all over the World War II memorial, for God's sakes, and with graffiti, and the Lincoln Memorial. I mean, so that's kind of what's going on. So as long as people are, this is the best case scenario for the people who believe in the mainstream media, because people have nothing to do because their state governments won't let them, their governors, and so they stay at home and they watch CNN.
I want to ask you one last question, and I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. How afraid are you right now this morning on this June 9th that Trump may not get reelected and we may be subjected to the absolute cancerous growth of negative politics with Joe Biden? How afraid are you?
Well, I'd say it's a flip of a coin right now, Zeb. 50-50.
Wow.
It's all going to depend on how fast, and that's one of the reasons why the Democratic governors don't want to let people go back to work, because they can sit at home and watch CNN and MSNBC and get all their news and fill their heads with all that stuff, and they've got built-in entertainment by the other parts of their operation that are riding across the United States. So it looks like the wheels are coming off the United States, and people say, "Oh, please, stop the pain, stop the pain." And so I'd say it's 50-50. I'm very concerned about it.
Oh my!
Concerned about it. But when everybody gets their news from the same sources that are all controlled out of Manhattan, L.A., and Washington D.C., we're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, Dan, as usual, it was a great conversation. I appreciate your opinion, as always. God bless you, my dear friend, with the American Energy Alliance, Dan Kish. Thank you for taking the time to come on my show. It's appreciated, and I'll look forward to next week. Thank you.
You betcha, Zeb. God bless you and your listeners.
All right. Thank you much. Great guy right there, Dan Kish with the American Energy Alliance, and I really appreciate him coming on our show. Want to remind you about Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. Don't forget they are the best at what they do in recouping you from your surgeries, your injuries. You need to make an appointment and get with them today, 678-1191. They're located at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Nick Greenwell also has Elite Fitness at 1200 Oakley Avenue in Burley, and it's caring for your fitness. You really need to get a hold of those folks and start a campaign to make you bigger, better, and stronger and healthier through Elite Fitness at 1200 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Wow, while we have the chance, too, I want to mention to everybody about Let's Ride. We need to get out of Dodge City every now and then and head for the hills and start your motor on your side-by-side or your four-wheeler and get away. Just get away. Well, the place to go to check on those great side-by-sides and four-wheelers is Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, and they've got new hours Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays, 9 to 2. And along with all the great side-by-sides and four-wheelers, all the accessories, and a super service department to keep you running. Absolutely the best. Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, and that is where the fun is sold. While you're over in that area, I want you to think about something that maybe you've put on the back burner and you shouldn't have, and that's your coverage on your life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, benefits, all of this and more with our good old buddy Todd and the crew at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. You talk about dedication. You talk about responsiveness to your needs and accessibility, all of these things, and they do the job for you. Absolutely. All you need to do is call, make an appointment at 436-4424. That number again, 436-4424, Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. I'm going to check over with Sean right now, my engineer, and see if the governor is on the line.
Yes, he is, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Sean. Ladies and gentlemen, back with us. He was here 2 weeks ago, and here we are ready to have another conversation. I'm very honored to have Governor Brad Little. Governor, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good, Zeb. How are you?
I'm doing 110 in a 55-mile-an-hour zone, so I guess I'm doing pretty good.
That's what I'd expect. I was at Twin Falls yesterday, and the wind was blowing a little bit, but we had a good discussion there about funding public safety and giving people some property tax relief. I had a good visit with commissioners, your local legislators, and the city leaders, so that went well.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, and then I've got about 9 or 10 other subjects to get into in the time allocated this morning. What about property tax relief? There's a lot of people that don't understand how it's going to benefit them, the taxpayers. I think it's to the tune of about a $200 million plan that's going to go back to the taxpayers. Explain that, Governor, please.
Well, this was not in the original bill from Treasury. The money that they sent, we got the same amount as most of the smaller states, and because we didn't spend it, other states, the state government and local government spent most of it. We got new guidance from the Treasury that we could basically pay for police and fire, the police, fire, EMS services. So when we saw that guidance, we said, well, let's look at that, and we've already sent some revenue out to local government. We thought, well, why don't we give it to the people that paid it, the taxpayers? So they will certify what they've spent on police, fire, EMS. They will send that to us, and we'll send them money back to give a rebate to the property taxpayers. It's 20% of public safety or city and county property taxes. It's probably 10%, and these are rounded over the whole state because it doesn't do anything in the education field, but it's still significant property tax relief.
All right, well, we're talking about tax relief and relief for our citizens of the state of Idaho. Governor, what about the state of Idaho helping small businesses with various loans to keep them solvent and keep the doors open? What's happening there?
Well, this property tax that we did yesterday obviously will also go to businesses, but that program and the program we did, our rebound grants, we were the first state to do that. There's other states that have basically duplicated our program, where if you're a small employer from 1 to 49, you can get up to a $10,000 grant. If you didn't get federal dollars, we were trying to plug the holes of people that didn't qualify for some of those programs. We made personal protective equipment available for small businesses that didn't have the buying power of a large business. And so, and then the program we announced at the end of last week was kind of an incentive for both employers and employees to go back to work. The federal unemployment program is pretty generous for people that live in Murtaugh, where the cost of living is not as high as it is in New York City. So we saw that as a problem. I don't blame people for they qualify for this program for applying for it and getting it, but we need people to go back to work, and so that's why I put this program. But all of these programs have been started in Idaho and have been replicated by our friends in other states.
Let's go to an issue that I know, and believe me, I have empathy and sympathy for being involved in this coronavirus. I don't agree with everything. I've told you that in the past, but the coronavirus has totally turned everything upside down and tried to roll it downhill. What are your thoughts now? Where are we and what's happening? And I know you're going to make a little speech on Thursday as to going into the fourth and final stage. Give us a recap as to where we are.
Well, to be short, we're okay. We're not great. We've got areas where we've got, an increase. As I said, it started in the Wood River Valley. It flowed down the Wood River into the Magic Valley, and then it went up to the Treasure Valley. Now it's going up to Snake River. We had an outbreak in Bonneville County just the last few days. But we have continued to increase healthcare capacity. We'll be at stage 4, we hope and pray, soon. So, and 99% of all businesses can be open. But then I envision, and I'm going to continue to talk with legislators, my healthcare team, businesses, city and county officials, that what will happen after this point is it'll be more regional in nature rather than be statewide, as long as we can maintain enough healthcare capacity. And I believe we can do that. My goal is prosperity for Idahoans, keeping people safe, and getting kids back to school this fall, which is very important to me.
Well, I know it is. Education is very important, but I want to back up just for a second here and ask you, to what do you and your team of experts attribute the outbreaks in those certain regions? Why the higher numbers all of a sudden?
Well, it's basically this pandemic is very sneaky because people will not show symptoms for a while, and then they start, and they're shedding the virus at that point in time, and then, of course, when they get sick, they're really shedding the virus. And, we're in a mobile society. That interstate that runs along that river brings a lot of people from in-state and out-of-state that have this, and it just pops up at other places. All the things that we ask people to do, most important thing is if you're not feeling well, please, please, please stay home. Please stay away from older people, people with compromised immune systems. Second is hygiene. Third is I don't like to call it social distancing. I call it physical distancing. I think people still ought to be social, but they hugs and kisses and yesterday, I was going around the state, and it is so foreign for me to not shake hands with everybody I run into. But that's a vector of which it transmits. And then, of course, face coverings, particularly if you're around those other people, every one of those items will keep that spread at a very manageable rate.
Governor, we are learning more and more about the virus, the do's, the don'ts, and what ifs every day. And I don't like to dwell in the past. I hate looking over my shoulder. But if you had this to do all over again with the new knowledge about this virus, what would you not do or change?
I think I would continue a lot of community outreach. Being on your program is a great example. This is such a change in our societal norms that I need to continue to urge leaders, whether they be business leaders, community leaders, faith leaders, about, the necessity to do this behavioral modification that we've all had to do. I would have done more than that. There's some of the programs, I think our handling of the federal money, as I said, has been replicated a lot by other states, has been good. It hasn't been perfect. We're still having a huge problem with unemployment. We're making changes there. I wish I would have started that earlier, and with more rigor some of the changes we're making there. But Zeb, I'm just like you. I have so many decisions that I need to make every day that doing a post-mortem on it right now is just not beneficial. I need to continue to look ahead to restore prosperity to Idaho.
Let me ask you this. I'm going to be very adamant that I want the school season to open up and be very flourishing, whether it's academically in the classroom or whether it's on the athletic field. Our kids have taken a hit, and they've taken a loss to their lives that really that portion can never be regained. What are your thoughts about reopening schools and getting back to the basics the way they should be?
Well, we're going to get there. I mean, I have been pretty adamant about that. There's a state board of education has been working with school districts in all regions, but buildings are different, kids are different. We are a local control system, and I have to convince superintendents, trustees, educators about what's necessary. What works in some school districts won't work in others, so I need to give them a smorgasbord of options that they can implement. They need to be on the ready that if there's a big blow-up in their community, they can remote deliver for some point, some time, all with the ultimate goal of getting kids back to work. Sporting events are going to look a little different. I don't know, I just saw this morning that the athletes of Boise State that they've called back, they tested them, and they had quite a few of them that were asymptomatic, which means they're going to be shedding the virus pretty soon. We need more testing if we're going to test all our teachers. Older teachers we're not going to want to expose them as much as we do younger teachers. We're going to have to do a lot of things different. But you're right. These kids, particularly the kids that don't have the perfect atmosphere at home, have really suffered. And there's going to be a star on 2020 about educational advancement saying that was the coronavirus year, and I don't like that one bit.
Governor, along with all the problems in the schools, pardon me, problems with business, there's a couple of industries that I'm really concerned about because I'm very close to the ties of agriculture and also the tourism in our state of Idaho. How and what do you look for as far as at the end of the fourth quarter of this year going into 2021? What do you think about agriculture and tourism?
Well, the hospitality industry, tourism, has had the biggest body blow of anybody because all of these new norms require less density at a hotel, less density in a restaurant, and as a result, that's flowed over into agriculture. People in agriculture, and we have a lot of it in Idaho and in the Magic Valley, their food products, their agricultural products go into that market. So it's all directly tied to the hospitality industry, which is going to take some time to recover. The one thing that's a constant in Idaho is the resilience of agriculture, and whether it be a food processor or a farmer, they are making decisions based on how to plant based on the fact that the French fry sales internationally are not going to be as great as they were. That the high-end beef that goes into the white tablecloth industry is going to be somewhat curtailed. But they're making those changes. There have been some pretty good programs from the federal government that have been made available. But it really all ties back to the hospitality industry, that until we get better testing, better treatment, and a vaccine, that industry is going to suffer for the near future.
Governor, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to open it up for a couple of phone calls in this segment. That's about all I have time for. I want to ask you about a problem that is being exacerbated across the whole country in many, many states, many communities right now, and that is being promoted by Black Lives Matter and also Antifa, and that's the defunding of our police forces. And you know as well as you and I are sitting here, some of that evil is going to come to Idaho, and there's going to be questions questions about our police forces. What are your thoughts?
It's not going to happen here. Our sheriffs, our police, our state police, this is as often as the case in this country, because of our democratic system and Congress, urban areas with urban problems try and overlay those over rural areas. And my heart goes out to some of those urban areas where they've had real problems. I don't see that. Congress saying how we're going to train a police officer in Twin Falls or Cassia County is absolutely ridiculous. We have standards. We have police officer training standards, and I'll tell you it's very rigorous. And they learn things now that they didn't have before. And to federalize local police is just a bad idea.
Well, it's an exceptionally poor idea anywhere, and I certainly hope it does not rear its head here in the state of Idaho. We will take an outside call. Sean, over at the station, do we have a caller waiting on the line?
Yes, we do.
All right. We'll take a call for you, Governor. And caller, you're on the air. Be polite, respectful, and issue your question to the governor. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Governor, you had a committee to decide what to do about getting more fish back in, whether or not to shut down the state. I deal with some of the biggest farmers, ranchers, dairymen, trucking companies in the state, and not one of them said he heard from your office at all. And when Kristi Noem didn't shut down South Dakota and you shut down Idaho, I just went out and talked to these men and how worried, how sick to death, worried they are about whether or not they're going to recover. The farmers are scared to death. And social distancing works to a point, but people are not. That's not how people are. And how long are they going to have to wait before you can fill a restaurant up? The restaurateurs, the bar owners, they're suffering, and they need to be able to fill it up. People are going to get this and get over it. I don't know how long we have to wait for this to be over with.
All right, caller. Thank you. Governor, please.
Well, first off, I've had multiple calls with both the food processor side and the agricultural side. I don't know how many. And of course, I are one of those. That's my real life farming and ranching. So instinctively, I have a fair idea. There's been no close down in agriculture. The caller is correct that the issue is just what I said before, is the hospitality industry. But people are not going to go to restaurants if they don't feel safe. That's the issue, or the question I keep posing to people, and the restaurateurs will tell you, there was no area where they didn't do anything. Governor Noem in South Dakota had guidance that they put out to the restaurants, guidance that they put out to the bars. We never arrested anybody in Idaho. We did what was required. We managed this COVID virus, I think, as well as anybody, but it wasn't perfect. I understand the fear and the uncertainty of people, and a lot of it is around the hospitality industry. But nobody asked for this COVID virus, and literally that industry, the hospitality industry, is suffering all over the world. This is not an Idaho issue. It's not a South Dakota issue. It's not a national issue. It's a global issue until we get our arms around this COVID virus, and that's what we work every day at, is trying to best manage it.
Governor, let me check and see if we have another caller. Sean, do we have another caller on the line?
No, we don't.
All right. Governor, there's another issue I wanted to ask you about that is causing trouble all over the country right now. And I'm worried about what might happen in Boise or Idaho Falls, Twin Falls. And that is the lack of knowledge about groups that are really stirring the pot, if you will. And that's Black Lives Matter and Antifa. What are your thoughts about these groups? Because I think a lot of our young people are being misled, misguided, and joining in when they really don't know what they're getting involved in. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have conversations at the federal level with the administration, with other governors, and this is kind of like those other issues we talked about, Zeb. We don't need to apply a federal solution to what we do here in Idaho. There were some of those activists that were here, but when they got out and practiced their First Amendment rights, and ordinary Idahoans showed up and practiced their First Amendment rights, the rancor went down. Policing abuses in urban areas where things have been happening badly, that there have been behavior that's totally unacceptable, should not be applicable to Idaho. And that's my story. I tell it far and wide that new laws, new regulations, those outside groups, they come to Idaho and dip their toe in the water, and nobody shows up, nobody wants to loot, nobody wants to riot, and I think they've moved on to other states. But there were some of them here. I get a little bit of intelligence about that issue, but the magnitude of it, but what was more important was the reaction of ordinary Idaho citizens that made it to where Idaho was not a conducive state for them to foster their hate and discontent.
Governor, the clock on the wall says that I have to leave now and do other things, but I want to tell you how much I appreciate your taking the time and the effort with numerous interviews this morning to come on my program, and I'll look forward to having you back real soon. Governor Brad Little, thank you very much.
You bet, Zeb. Good to visit with you.
Thank you, sir. Governor Brad Little talking about various and sundry issues this morning, and, like I said, calls were welcome, and we're going to have another segment in about 2 weeks and open up a forum so that you can ask your questions of the governor. And, caller, I'll be right with you, but right now, as you can look at your wristwatch, I've got to get a weather forecast on. I'll be right there to take your call. Stand by. Weather this hour brought to you by Phillips Oaks Goodwin Crane and Company, and they've been providing accounting services to the Mini-Cash area for well over 50 years. They are the professionals when it comes to tax return preparation, tax planning, financial statement preparation, retirement planning, all of this and so much more. They know and they can help you. Offices in Burley and Rupert, don't forget, Phillips Oaks Goodwin Crane and Company. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
I think our gardens are going to enjoy Mother Nature this week because temperatures are going to be warming up. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting mostly sunny skies for today, a little bit of a breeze, but a high near 68. Tonight, mostly clear skies with a low of 44 tomorrow. Sunny skies, high of 78, mostly clear for tomorrow night with a low of 50 by Thursday. Looking at mostly sunny skies, high of 87. That's a look at your weather forecast for 7 Durant.
Appreciate it, Gina. Great job again. Thank you very much. And the weather brought to you by Phillips Oaks Goodwin Crane and Company. And again, the professionals with accounting services to you, your family, and your business at 1710 Overland in Burley and 625th Street in Rupert. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Thank you.
Oh, hello, Governor.
The governor is not on the line at this time. We ended that segment, sir. I'm sorry. I thought maybe you had been notified, so I apologize for that.
Okay, well, I just would have asked him, some of us consider COVID to have been man-made, and that the pandemic, the term for it is planned-demic, and it was a social experiment. So I'm sorry I missed him, Zeb.
Well, no, don't apologize, because I'm sorry. Time is a constraint that I have to abide by, and we had exactly 20 minutes to get everything in. But please don't apologize. But I understand what you're saying, and I have a lot of belief in what you're saying. But the next time he's on, which I hope is going to be next week again, please call back and be in line to come on the air and say that, because I want to hear your response.
Will do.
All right, sir. God bless you. Thank you so much. You know, I just wished all of a sudden that I could say, okay, we're going to be on the air for an hour, and take any and all questions. But it doesn't work that way. I was told by Governor's managerial staff up in his PR room that he had call-in interviews at 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30 me, and one right at 10 o'clock again. And so, time-wise, I apologize. We got as much in as we could. Want to remind you, too, about Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley, with our friends Curtis and Lorena, and oh my goodness, everything electronic. Everything that would boggle my mind. It's way above me. I mean, the monster cables and the power cords and all the surveillance cameras and the home theater systems, TVs, car stereos, and speakers. I mean, you name it, they've got it at Patterson's Electronics. And don't forget, they're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6. Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley, serving you. Really, really nice people. We're going to go to Dr. History at 10:06, and I want to remind you again that at 10:30 this morning, we have one of the best renowned doctors in the United States that's going to be talking about the coronavirus. What's next? Where do we go from here? What about the future? All of this with Dr. Dean Hart, and I'm really looking forward to visiting with him. And tomorrow on the program, I was going to say that we have another gentleman, John O'Connor, that's going to be talking about our economy, and hopefully Dr. Gerard Lamero is going to come back on tomorrow. I've got questions about Biden. I've got questions about these polls. I've got questions about his possible running mate. They say they've narrowed it down to two, Elizabeth Warren and possibly, oh my goodness, Kamala Harris. And we're going to have all that on the air tomorrow. Right now, we're going to send it back over to Sean. Good job, Sean, by the way, for the governor. And we'll be back in about 7 minutes. Oh, my. Ladies and gentlemen, history is being made this morning with Dr. History. I'll tell you why in just a moment. Don't forget, Zev at the Ranch, brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you with a very safe, clean environment and the best in tires. Along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And, of course, let's not forget our friends at Greystone Crossing. My goodness sakes, I tell you every day what a beautiful place for senior living with your friends. A 12-bedroom home. My goodness, right there on 21st Street, a mile east of Walmart, and boy, the cooking is good. Oh boy, 3 meals a day, snacks, housekeeping, and local transportation. My goodness sakes, you better call Matt and Kelly Wiggins today. Don't put it off. Do it right now. 650-4979. 650-4979. And make an appointment to see this beautiful property. Greystone Crossing Senior Living, 1221 21st Street in Hayburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. Also, real quick, I want to tell you a little bit about 2 more friends of mine, Lon Hardy and Sharon Wilmot with 7K Metals. Help yourself build your financial security and future and create your own security bank with silver purchases sent right to your home. Absolutely with 7K Metals. Call Lon Hardy at 312-8699 or Sharon Wilmot at 430-3259 and tell them I told you to call. They'll help you. It's a great saving opportunity and a valued treasure for your loved ones in the future. 7K Metals and silver purchases. Holy smokes, it has been literally 4 months. 5 months
Been a long time.
Since you've been here in the studio.
Yeah.
I forgot, I said something nasty to you when you walked in, but I forgot what you look like. I'm just going to leave it go at that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
You know, it's a treat to have you back. I hate phone calls.
Yeah, it's hard to carry on really kind of a conversation or a story.
A rapport.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Go. Yeah. Now, last week we had an interesting story, but what do you got for me this week?
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about the Dakota area, and we're going to talk about some of the visitors there, some of the people, but we're going to talk about three of the women that are pretty famous that are part of history of that area.
I know one of them. I'll bet you $100.
Okay, I'll bet you do too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
And they were kind of, may I say, shady ladies.
No. Nope. I should have bet you.
You should have, because I thought you were going the other way, like the Wild Bill Hickok type thing.
Nope.
Oh.
Two of the most recognized women in the Old West are Sacagawea and Elizabeth Custer.
Oh, see, you got me.
I did.
Yeah,
you owe me $100.
I didn't bet that. And besides that, you take a check?
No. So here we have Sacagawea and Elizabeth Custer, and both of them have stories tied to the history of western North Dakota. And their stories are just two of a lot of those that are connected to the Great Plains. So we know Captain William Clark and Meriwether Lewis with the Corps of Discovery. They started building a three-sided fort near the Missouri River in November 2nd, 1804, and that's where they stayed throughout that winter. Okay. Now, their post, they called it Fort Mandan, and it's about a dozen miles from present-day Washburn, North Dakota. Mm-hmm. And it was downstream from villages occupied by the Mandan and the Hidatsa Indians. Now, at Mandan, Lewis wrote in his journal on February 11th, 1805, one of the wives of Charbonneau was delivered of a fine boy. This wife of Toussaint Charbonneau, the interpreter Lewis and Clark hired to accompany them upriver later in the spring, was a woman of many names known as Sacagawea. Again, I'm going to bet that almost everybody's got to have heard of Sacagawea.
What tribe was she from? Was she a Mandan?
No, she was kidnapped. I think I'll get to that.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Shoshone, I think.
I see.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, she was Lemhi Shoshone.
I see.
But she'd been kidnapped by the Hidatsa raiders near the Three Forks of the Missouri and was later traded to Charbonneau, a French-Canadian trapper. Now, in North Dakota, they pronounce it Sacagawea, like with a K.
With a K.
Yeah, but we know it as Sacagawea.
Now, that's interesting that she was given to or forced to be with Charbonneau?
Yeah, or, traded or...
You know, what's interesting right there, Doc, as part of Dr. History, do you remember the 7-part series, How the West Was Won? That movie?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
In the beginning, wasn't the fur trader that was in the canoe and he ended up with an Indian squaw, wasn't his name Charbonneau?
I don't remember. It's been so long since I think it was. But Charbonneau, and of course they had this son, while this boy. And I've done a story on him.
Yeah.
But anyway, at Fort Mandan... Now, during the winter of 1804-05, Lewis and Clark and their men stayed close to Fort Mandan, but they did visit regularly the Mandan village, and they were looking for information about what they would find upriver and when they headed out in the spring, and they knew that Charbonneau spoke a variety of languages and would be helpful as they set off. And Sacagawea was often with him in the quarters at Fort Mandan, and no doubt Lewis and Clark realized that her knowledge of the territory they would be traveling would be very useful on this mission, on this Corps of Discovery. And her fluency in the Shoshone language and her ability to communicate with Charbonneau in the Hidatsa were reason enough to take the young woman with them that next spring to travel the Missouri River in their boats and on foot. So that's kind of how she played into that whole thing. And like I say, at this time she had this little baby.
Was that Charbonneau's baby?
Yeah, Charbonneau, yeah, and her, yeah. I'm trying to remember his first name. It's Jean-Baptiste. Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau was the son. and there's a whole story about him I did a while back on him.
I remember that.
Yeah, but the location of Fort Mandan is not known for certain. It most likely now is under the waters of the Missouri River, they think, but they say visitors can step into the areas where the Mandans and other Missouri River tribes lived. The Knife River villages, which is now a historical site, are an hour northwest of Bismarck, and one of the Knife River locations is Ahwatuksa Village, also called Sacagawea Village, and it has many as 60 earth lodges, and the depressions of sites of Mandan lodges are still visible. Now, I've never been there, and, maybe some of our listeners have been to this place and can tell me more about it.
Well, all I'm going to say quickly is that isn't it a shame that we lost that part of history with the burying or the basic underwater Fort Mandan? And the same is true with my hometown.
Oh.
Fort Atkinson was underwater in a swampy area.
Yeah.
Gone.
Yeah. So preserving to me is really, really important. You know? But at the north, they have this North Dakota Heritage Center in Bismarck, and you can visit Fort Abraham Lincoln, and it overlooks a place called On a Slant Village, which was a Mandan campsite that includes, there again, reconstructed earth lodges. And the Mandans occupied the site on the flats along the Missouri River, they figure clear from 1575 to 1781, so several hundred years. Now, Fort McKeon was built nearby in 1872, and the following year, a cavalry post was constructed, and the combined installations were renamed Fort Abraham Lincoln when Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer arrived as the commander of the new post. He brought his lovely wife, Elizabeth, and they called her Libby. Elizabeth, they called her Libby. And the post quickly became one of the largest and most important on the Northern Plains. So she was right there amongst the whole thing. So Custer and the 7th Cavalry, they drilled on the parade ground while Libby entertained in the commander's house. She had family, including a sister-in-law, Margaret Calhoun, in addition to George, his two brothers, Tom and Boston, and Custer, and brother-in-law James Calhoun, and a nephew they called Audie Reed, and they all served in the Army and were stationed at Fort Lincoln.
I see.
Now, and we know that George's brothers, I think they both died at the battle. I know Tom did. I can't remember.
They were with him at the Little Bighorn.
Yeah, I know Tom did. I'm not sure about Boston.
But they were real proud to be a member of that family.
Yeah. So the 7th Cavalry marched away from the fort on May 17th, 1876. The departure was impressive. A dozen companies of troops, Indian scouts, 150 wagons carrying equipment and supplies strung out probably 2 miles long. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. Wow.
And with soldiers, civilians, teamsters, Indian scouts, the group numbered about 1,200 men and 1,700 animals, including a herd of cattle, extra horses and mules. And with the other women left behind at the fort, Libby, Elizabeth Custer, and Margaret Calhoun watched until they disappeared into the distance.
A herd of cattle?
Yeah, well, to feed the men.
I know, but you never see or hear any of that in the movies depicting that.
No, all you
That's
see
the
is
first
the
I'd ever heard of that.
Yeah. So they had to have all these animals too, oxen and mules and horses, for pulling the wagons. So the fort would have been pretty quiet after they departed. The women probably visited each other and went about their daily duties until the news reached them in late June that Custer's command had fallen at the Battle of the Little Bighorn.
So they didn't know about it until when?
June, and this was May when they left.
I see.
I can't remember the exact date that the battle took place.
I thought it was June 24th. Maybe I'm wrong.
That could be right.
Yeah.
So, anyway, and that finally they found out about it. So Libby Custer, her heart no doubt breaking after learning the news of the fight, she picked up her shawl and accompanied Captain William McCaskey of the 20th Infantry, one of the men who had informed her of Custer's death, to visit the other women at the fort and tell them about their husbands.
You say about when they heard about it, and then it was related back to the fort. I mean, it wasn't like picking up your cell phone, was it?
No, this was.
It took quite some time.
Right, and then picture this. Here's Libby having to go tell the other wives that their husbands are not coming home.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know how many of those, but, what a heartbreaking scene that would have been.
Oh, my.
Anyway, once the sad duty had been carried out, Libby Custer returned to her own home where they held family gatherings and social events. She packed her things and departed the fort, traveling to her family's home in Monroe, Michigan. And she later wrote that a wounded thing must hide, which I assume she meant that she was hurt pretty bad.
And wanted to stay away from people.
Yeah, and so Libby Custer would pick herself up and spend the rest of her life writing books that honored her husband's legacy. So,
did she try to change his personality and persona?
There's
a lot of stories about he was not a very nice person.
There's a lot of stories regarding Custer, and I would have to say that as his wife, she is going to remember the good things. Wouldn't you think?
I would, but history doesn't depict him as a...
Yeah, it sometimes paints a little different picture. So,
really.
Now, the area near the confluence of the Yellowstone and Missouri Rivers became the site of Fort Union. Now, this was a most important fur trading site on the upper Missouri during the 19th century. So, the American Fur Company post became a key location for trading with members of several of the Indian tribes, including the Assiniboine, the Blackfeet, Plains Crow, Hidatsa, Mandan, Chippewa, and Indian women were at the post with their families to engage in trade. Some were painted by a guy by the name of George Catlin after his travel to the area in 1832. So, a lot of the things we see...
Now, where was this?
This was it was Fort Union. Which was near the confluence of the Yellowstone and the Missouri Rivers.
I'm trying to figure out where that'd be...
It's got to be up in Montana.
Yeah, on the border of Wyoming and Montana, wouldn't it?
Somewhere, yeah. I'm not exactly sure. But arguably the most important woman associated with Fort Union was Natawista, the daughter of two sons, a leader in the blood tribe of the Blackfoot Confederacy. She was born in 1825. She traveled with her father to the Fort Union trading post when she was about 15 years old. There she married Alexander Culbertson, and he was the chief trader at Fort Union. And this was common for this to happen. And you might say, well, she was only 15. But that, again, 14, 15, 16, a lot of them got married at that age. And because trade was so important to the tribes, it was not uncommon for a headman or chief to forge relations with the fur traders through the arranged marriages of their daughters. So it happened. Now, Natawista would serve an important role at Fort Union. She had 5 children and assisted her husband. Again, he was the chief trader. Assisted him with trading duties. She served as a translator and a hostess, and she got some credibility as a diplomat, bridging the cultures of the Indians and the whites.
I've heard that name.
Yeah. And I think I did a story on her a long time ago.
Yeah, I believe you did.
But as Indians, Sacagawea and Natawista had deep connections to the western lands and the lifestyles of their people, which required them to adapt to all the changing conditions. Now, Elizabeth had fallen in love with George Armstrong Custer, and following their marriage, she willingly traveled with him to his assignments in the West. So she had to be a pretty brave, adventuresome woman.
And tough.
Yeah. So now here's another one. Medora von Hoffman.
They named the city of Medora after her.
You're getting ahead of me, Zeb.
I know, but I fell behind at first.
Okay. Now you're getting ahead of me. So Medora von Hoffman, the daughter of a wealthy New York banker, likely never expected she would live in the Wild West. While traveling in Europe, she met and married a wealthy French nobleman, the Marquis de Morez. He came with her to America and began learning about the American West. He saw the place as a land of opportunity and came to western North Dakota in 1833. The Marquis selected an area where the Northern Pacific Railroad crossed the Little Missouri River. He bought nearly 9,000 acres, and near the original town of Little Missouri, built a new town on the east bank of the river, naming it Medora.
There you go.
Now you know how that...
Have you been there?
No, I have not.
It's a wonderful tourist town.
Oh, okay.
It really is.
Yeah.
They do a lot of national advertising.
Okay. Well, the area had everything that the Marcus de Mora wanted and needed for his enterprise. There was plenty of water, grass, shelter for cattle, direct shipping on the railroad to markets in the east, and ice on the river to use in a packing plant. Beside being European and wealthy, the Marcus was an entrepreneur. He had convinced his father-in-law to provide the financial backing necessary to start his own company, the Northern Pacific Refrigerator Car Company.
Oh, my.
The business raised cattle, butchered them at the packing plant, and then shipped the meat to markets using these refrigerated rail cars to keep it fresh. Now, I didn't realize they had refrigerated rail cars clear back then.
Now, what year was that?
Let's see, that would have been 1883.
Oh, wow.
1883, 84, right in there.
And that was because of the ice.
Right, because they had the ice that they chopped during the winter and then stored it somehow.
And they get a lot of ice back there.
I would imagine. Well, unfortunately, the operation lasted just 3 years, failing due to competition, partially because the eastern consumers did not like the taste of the range-fed beef. Okay?
Really?
But the Marcus had not...
Picky.
Yeah. But the Marcus had not pinned all his hopes and dreams on one business. In addition to ranching and feeding cattle, he raised sheep and horses. He had a freighting company and stagecoach line that linked Medora with Deadwood, South Dakota. And he established and operated ice houses along the route of the Northern Pacific between Helena, Montana, and Duluth, Minnesota. He used his refrigerated rail cars to ship not only beef, but also other goods, including salmon, from the west coast to the east coast. Now, that's a long ways.
Oh, my.
And Medora, the wife, she managed the couple's 26-room summer home. It was called the Chateau de Morez. And it was built on a bluff overlooking the town that bore her name. And this home is now a North Dakota State Historic Site.
Right.
Now, another visitor, I know we're getting close to out of time, not a woman, but another early resident of the area was actually Theodore Roosevelt. And he came in 1883 to hunt buffalo. Before leaving the region, he bought a share of Chimney Butte Ranch, locally known as the Maltese Cross.
Yes.
And Roosevelt left North Dakota to return to New York and, of course, his political career. But he was devastated by the deaths of his mother and his wife, actually within hours of each other. His baby daughter survived, but after the deaths of the women, Roosevelt returned to North Dakota, where he kind of expanded his ranch holdings.
Didn't he, and I better be quiet and let you finish, because I was going to ask you a question about Roosevelt.
Okay, well, let me just finish this little bit here.
Okay, good.
Cattlemen in the region where he was brought more and more head of livestock to the area, and then disaster struck with the severe winter.
That's it.
In 1886, that killed hundreds, thousands of cattle, and they called it the Great Die-Up.
Yeah.
That's what they called it. And it devastated a lot of the ranchers' operations, including Roosevelt.
Yeah, that's the deal I was going to ask you about. Because I've got a book on this shelf someplace of all these shelves of books that talks about that ranch and the demise and the great winter they had, the severe winter they had that killed all the livestock.
Yeah. And, back there now, they have this Theodore Roosevelt National Park.
Yes.
70,000 acres.
Yep.
And during the summer, now they have what they call the Medora Musical.
Yep.
Is performed in an outdoor amphitheater. They share stories about Roosevelt and his time charging up San Juan Hill and the Maltese Cross Cabin and the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame.
Go there if you get a chance. Yeah.
So anyway, those are some of the more famous women that I'm going to guess a lot of people have heard about them.
Absolutely. And, that area I'm very familiar with. I've announced a lot of rodeos back in that country and everything. And I urge anybody, if they're on a road trip, stop at Medora.
Yeah, I had no idea. And, I know there's a lot of places throughout our country where these places exist.
Why don't we take a road trip for a year and just do the program on the road?
Well, that could work.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
I would love to do that.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
No, that's a great story about Roosevelt. Can you do more on that Maltese Cross Ranch and
I'll see
Roosevelt?
what I can find.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Actually, one of our listeners, Jeff, sent me an email just yesterday, and he had a list of about 10 or 12 people, some I've heard of and some I haven't. And so I thank Jeff for sending some suggestions. And I appreciate hearing from listeners that give me suggestions for stories. Yeah.
God bless you, man. It's so good to have you back in the studio, and great job this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. History. I'm just real proud to have him be a part of our program. Thank you very much. Want to remind you, before we take the break at the bottom of the hour, about Vicky's Country Garden. Don't forget, lovely Miss Vicky is going to tell you all about how to grow your garden at 185 South 600 West of Paul every Monday at 10:30 right here on Zeb at the Ranch. Tune in and learn from Miss Vicky at Vicky's Country Garden. Also want to remind you about what's going on at our dear friends Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Holy cow, you've got to stop in. You've got to check out all the carpet, all the flooring. You've got to check out all the furniture, all the living room sets, everything for you to beautify and comfortize your home. The experts work there, and I'm talking about Jeff and the crew at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More, and they're located at 459 Overland. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays, 10 to 5. Don't forget to stop in today. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. We're going to take a real quick break and send it over to our main studios, and I'll be back with Dr. Dean Hart in about 3 minutes.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb.
Thank you much. And once again, I want to remind you that Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair is for sale. What? Yes, I'm saying lock, stock, and barrel. Turnkey business ready for you at 635 21st Street in Heyburn. Oh, my, great business and an opportunity. Doug will even train the new buyer the business of rebuilding starters and all the repair of alternators, etc. And I'm telling you, like I mentioned a moment ago, it is a turnkey business operation ready. Beautiful shop, all the equipment, and Doug's knowledge. Absolutely, Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair, 635 21st Street in Heyburn. Number to call, 878-4991. Right now, let's go to the phone line, and we've had this gentleman on the program before. He's an expert in microbiology and a published author on the transmission of viruses and diseases. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to have him back on the show. Dr. Dean Hart, how are you?
Oh, good to be back.
Dr. Hart, you were on the program right in the beginning of the coronavirus back in March and April when it really was taking over. And Sean over at the station, I've got a severe feedback problem here on this one. I can barely hear. But tell us, what's the status right now of the coronavirus in your opinion with the going into the summer months?
Well, I remember well in Idaho looking you guys up and seeing there was almost no COVID. But now I can see, as I predicted, I believe, that sooner or later it'll get to every state in the country. And that's the pattern it's following. We had another disease called Lyme disease here. Still have it. It's from deer ticks. But what happened was it came from the south and eventually migrated more north and more north and more north. The COVID virus is ubiquitous in nature at this point after all those protests. So sooner or later, each state is exposed to it, and we'll deal with it.
You know, let me ask you this, as far as the virus is concerned itself, Doctor. Is it mutating into a various in another form? Is it lessening in its social awareness and its social devastation? I mean, what do you think about the virus itself? Is it fading or is it at its peak? What's going on there?
Well, by definition, every virus mutates, and even human cells mutate. The vast, vast majority of mutations end up in the death of the cell or the virus. Mutation doesn't necessarily live. As a matter of fact, very rarely lives. But as far as mutations go, everything will mutate. Which is a little bit of a problem for vaccine makers, but I don't see a vaccine coming out too soon anyway. I think what's happening now is the same
relatively the same strain, maybe with one base pair different or something, is about the same contagiousness, is the same mortality rate. It seems about the same in our nation.
Doctor, you mentioned you don't see any vaccine coming out soon, but therein lies a fear for all of us that are getting a little gray and long in the tooth, i.e. me. I'm 72 years old. What are our fears going into the fall and winter about this virus being as severe as it first was?
Well, there's no data to support the fact that the winter is any more dangerous for COVID than now. Now, clearly the flu and other things, because it's cold, it has the ability to manifest itself and cause more mortality when it's cold. But overall, I don't see the coronavirus going up and down by seasonal variation. It doesn't really make sense because Brazil has plenty of it and India's getting it. These are hot countries. So as far as the season goes, that I wouldn't hang my hat on that being a variable of great consequences, except more people die in the winter than the summer from flu and every other germ you can get. But as far as 72 years old, I'm getting a little long in the tooth myself. And are we more at risk? Absolutely. The mortality rate is greater. So, what can one do to protect themselves? Well, a vaccine, you can wait forever for that one. AIDS still doesn't have a vaccine. It's got a treatment after 30 years. Then, of course, we use the word treatment. This thing has very little treatment. We understand protocols a little better because so many people have ended up in the hospitals. But there's no treatment, no vaccine. So what does somebody in the high-risk group with high blood pressure especially, that's a big risk factor if you're 72 with high blood pressure. But still, the odds are you're not going to die from getting COVID, but you have much higher rate of death than the protesters who are 25 years old out there.
Well, in my case, I'll use me as an example. I don't like to normally do this. I had 5 years ago a heart attack and a small mini stroke. I am now in excellent health. I've shed a lot of weight, but I feel like I'm on top of my game, and COVID not necessarily is a death knell to people over 70 years of age, is it?
No, it is not. The majority of people do not die from COVID if you're 72 years old. But the rate of mortality is worse than the rate of mortality for flu. COVID is more likely to kill a 72-year-old or whatever than the flu. So you got that. But the comorbidities, how's your blood pressure?
Being regulated, I'm absolutely perfect on that right now.
You take medicine?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, well, you've got comorbidity factors, but still, the odds are in your favor even if you catch it. And what's going to happen is not all elderly or... Not that you're not elderly, we consider you middle-aged. Not all middle-aged people are going to catch it, and then certainly the majority are not going to die from it, but it is a concern.
Yeah.
I'm not as young as I used to be either, but how do you live a life in fear? There's an old saying, a coward dies 1,000 deaths, a brave man only one.
Absolutely. You know, you brought up an interesting point right there, Doctor, and I want you to elaborate on it a little bit. I see the country in general worried about the what-ifs about the coronavirus instead of actually concerning themselves with the what-is. Do you think I'm wrong on that?
Oh, the what-ifs I wouldn't worry about too much. Health planning and the public health people really have that to worry about, the what-ifs and all the permutations. We have to have the option of people at more risk, like yourself or me, we have some more risk. We need to make an autonomous decision. Do we want to take the risk of getting the flu or getting COVID and perhaps calling it a life? It's our individual choice. The risk-reward ratio. No longer is it the government's choice. Being locked in does not seem like a bioethical protocol that works. The biggest deal is you don't stick COVID-positive patients into nursing homes like the fools have done.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. As you look over your shoulder as a microbiologist and you've studied the coronavirus, would you say now, looking in the rear view mirror, that it was as bad or serious as we deemed it to be and forcing the lockdowns, or should there have been a better approach?
I think the approach should be mainly one thing. You keep an open society and let people stay in and support them if they're fearing the COVID virus, and then let those that want to make the autonomous liberty and freedom decision of going out, let them take the risk, except under two conditions. The mask is a good thing for now, but I'll probably reverse myself on that as time goes on. But the biggest deal is if the hospitals become overwhelmed, as they did in New York, they were almost looking like the ICUs couldn't handle more patients, and then every citizen, to me, has a right to health care. You work a lifetime, and then you're Medicare, and then you don't have an ICU bed when you finally need it. That's not right. So if the hospitals and the medical system is not overwhelmed, I think that's where you got the safety valve, the faucet effect. If it's overwhelmed and you can't handle any more sick people, do you lock it down so the hospitals can work themselves and their way out of this problem? I think that's what you do. But what you don't do is put the hospital patients, in, when they're still positive, into a nursing home. Like, that killed half of the New Yorkers that died were because they exported patients from the hospitals while they were still positive into the nursing homes and told them, you make sure they're safe and isolated. Nursing homes didn't have any kind of equipment to do that, and we know about the shortages of masks and gowns. It was a blunder before, but could I see a month of lockdown because the hospitals are close to being overwhelmed, like in New York? They were close. And I think there's one state that actually finally ran out of ICU beds. Then you really want to take public action. Short of that, it's a person's freedom.
Absolutely. Doctor, let me ask you this, and I knew you've been asked this question probably 1,000 times or more, but for my audience on this talk show, and what would you tell them as symptoms to watch for and be aware of, and if they have the symptoms, the smartest thing to do at that time to take care of themselves? What would you advise?
Well, if you get symptoms that you think could be the flu even, you want to call your doctor. But assuming now it more likely isn't the flu, but COVID because of the seasonal variation of the flu, I would say the shortness of breath is your classic thing that you will experience, but then you pretty much know it because it's a very unique feeling. Now, diarrhea, all sorts of other symptoms, go with it. The first thing I would do is call the doctor, not show up in person, but call the doctor and say, I'm not feeling well, perhaps a telemedicine conference, and the doctor will go over the issues and then determine if you should be tested for COVID, which is probably what you would want to do in June if you get sick. But you don't need to make the decision. Telemedicine, doctors are doing that, and it's a great breakthrough. Unfortunately, it wasn't the way we wanted to get into telemedicine, but it's a very efficient way to handle it, especially in Idaho. You got to be able to interact with a doctor, and you can do it very, very quickly. And but don't show up to the doctor's office. A fever is typically a warning symptom, but it's the warning symptom of many germs. So if you get a fever, diarrhea with no shortness of breath, don't be a doctor and diagnose yourself. You've got to talk with the doctor and figure it out. The chances are there's no harm in this test. It's not really invasive or anything to test if you're COVID positive.
As a doctor, I would imagine that you really cringed over the last 2 weeks showing the protesters en masse, thousands of people grouped together and everything else without any protection or social distancing. How afraid are you that they're going to have a regeneration of the coronavirus?
Well, that's a darn good question. First thing I noticed when they were all together, some weren't wearing masks. At this point, I think you got to wear masks. I think it should be reasonable to protect each other's back, because if you're positive, you should protect somebody else's back because you can give it to them without masks because you're chanting. That's one step away from sneezing and coughing in somebody's face, and there's no social distancing. Now, masks are not that protective. They let half the air in and filter half the air. That's in and out. So don't get carried away that you've got a full sense of security with a mask. And gloves, I don't even think people use them properly ever. So unless you're a doctor changing them every patient. So now we've got a low-aged group when you see them with less mortality, less comorbidities. But they're probably getting contaminated somewhat, but they're not going to die in any huge amount. Protesting is a patriotic thing done properly, and you can't balance the risk-reward ratio for these young people. Now, if I was 72 with a treatment for high blood pressure, would I go out on the march? I would probably autonomously say that's not the liberty I want to exercise. In your case, in my case, ditto. On the other hand, you need to be living a normal life. You can't throw away our Constitution, our freedom, for a freaking virus that we have now a real good handle on many things and don't have a good handle on many other things with this virus. No, the protests I wouldn't worry about too much.
All right. Doctor, one final thought, and I absolutely am adamant that our schools have got to open up this fall. Our children and our college students have taken such a hit with their educations being in limbo. What are your thoughts about opening up the schools?
Well, here's a weird thing of the outcome of the protest. It was a great experiment. We didn't intend the experiment, but the unintended consequences is that this is as dangerous or not dangerous as school. So these protesters will answer this question with great clarity. A virus takes 7 to 10 days to incubate typically, with variations each person. So now we've got these protesters. Do they get sick? These are like school-age people, maybe a little older. But I agree with you. There's nothing I see more important than my child going to school and getting an education and socialization. The Zoom and Internet is no way to socialize. There's no exercise. We're hurting the next generation to protect the previous generations that are older. Now, I'm not into ageism and tossing the older people into under the bus, but the children is what we really live for, and I agree with you 100%. Back to school, and then if it creates an overwhelming of the hospital and they get home and get grandma sick, grandma and grandpa want their kids in school. It's a freedom of choice.
One final thought real quick, and you mentioned it earlier about the vaccines for the coronavirus, and for that matter, all the strains of the flu. Do you anticipate, another year of testing before it is deemed safe for the American public or the world public? What are your thoughts on a vaccine?
My thought is I'm last in maybe I'm the billionth person in line to take it if it comes out within 6 to 12 months, because the proper way to do a vaccine from my historical perspective of looking at virology and vaccine, you can get something out in 6 months, and it can work, and it can be totally safe, but typically it takes years and years on animal models and looking what happens to the body after 2 or 3 years of a monkey, let's say, and you look at the liver 2 years later. So I don't want one part of my body falling off when another part of my body is going to be immune to COVID. It's very complicated, and it's fraught with peril, especially in the beginning if they rush it out, and it looks like politicians do want to rush it out.
I tell you what, every time you're on, you're so easy to understand and talk to, and I give you a lot of thanks. An expert in microbiology and a published author on the transmission of viruses and diseases, Dr. Dean Hart. God bless you, sir, and thank you for taking the time to come on this morning.
Oh, you're very welcome. Good to be with you again.
Thank you, sir. I'll look forward to having you back. I really enjoy having him on my program, Dr. Dean Hart. Thank you. Right now, we've got to go to the weather forecast. And the weather, holy smokes, it's going to get better, I hope. And the weather brought to you by Scarrows Meats. Don Scarrow and the crew at 331 North Road, Jerome. Remember that address. Take the time and the effort to go over there. They've got a lot of walk-in customers at their location, and they've got all kinds of delicious pork and hams and bacon and pork chops. Oh, everything is fantabulous. All the different flavors of bacon, you're going to love going over to Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. Don't forget the telephone number to call, 324-7657. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
I think our gardens are going to enjoy Mother Nature this week because temperatures are going to be warming up. Here's a look at your weather forecast. We are expecting mostly sunny skies for today, a little bit of a breeze, but a high near 68. Tonight, mostly clear skies with a low of 44. Tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 78. Mostly clear for tomorrow night with a low of 50 by Thursday. Looking at mostly sunny skies, high of 87. That's a look at your weather forecast.
Ooh, wow. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you very much, Gina. Appreciate that. And as I stated, my wife talked to Don Scarrow yesterday, and he said, holy moly, come on over. We've got all the delicious meats for you at Scarrows Meats. I know a lot of you are going to have some summer picnics and company picnics and everything. Don't forget to get a hold of Scarrows Meats, 324-7657, or you can go to their website, scarrowsmeats.com. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time at Scarrows Meats. Wow. Thank you for a great program this morning. I got time for one more phone call if somebody wants to call in. And again, we're going to try to make the call into the State House with the governor at least bi-weekly from now on. And some of our other politicians have not used the due diligence to call and try to schedule times so that they could relate to you, their constituents. I got to hand it to the governor, and I mean this when I say this. You might have your personal criticisms of him. I have also on some issues, but his staff responded immediately over 2 weeks ago when I questioned why politicians can't call in and arrange time to talk to their constituents. He was the only one. Here we have all these other politicians on a statewide or national level that do not call and do not show any concern as to trying to make time on a repetitive basis to come on the air. The governor did. I respect him for it. Others, not so much. What do we got cooking for tomorrow? Well, let's take a look at the program sheet. We've got Dave Bego from Indianapolis, Indiana, and a gentleman that I really enjoy having on the program. His name is Sargis Sangari, and he is a soldier and absolutely has been to the hot spots around the world and knows what's going on. John O'Connor is going to be coming on the program, and then last but not least, at 10:30, we hope we can get a reschedule on Dr. Gerard Lamero, a gentleman that absolutely is one of my favorite political analysts, and we want to talk to him about why Why are these polls showing that Trump is so far behind the lunacy of the left and Joe Biden? So we're going to have all that tomorrow. We always end the program by saying the following slogan: the way things were are the way things ought to be. And I absolutely believe in that. And the 4 words that mean the most to this program and myself: in God we trust. I certainly hope you have a great day. Stay safe out there with your families. Don't forget, tomorrow morning at 8:06, we'll saddle the horse and ride for 3 more hours on Zeb at the Ranch. Have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow morning.